Hello and welcome back. This is David Bianco. Thank you for joining me today as I'm coming to you from Madrid, Spain. Really a wonderful, beautiful place, and a place that has a lot of history. And it even has some great vinyl stores to boot. I'm going to share that with you next, here on today's Safe and Sound Texas audio excursion. Well, here I am, Madrid, Spain. This is the excursion part of the audio excursion in my channel name. I've been here in Spain for a week now, and I was in the eastern part of Spain, in Alicante, for a conference. Didn't get to do any vinyl shopping there, but got to Madrid Friday night, and Saturday morning I was out with a friend who graciously took some time and showed me some of the vinyl hotspots here just to the southwest of the center of Madrid. And we hit a few of those yesterday. I hit one today on Sunday as well. So it's been exhilarating. It's been a little cooler than I would have expected, but it's about the same as Dallas from what I can see temperature-wise lately. And what I did was went with him and went to some of the sites there. I'm going to be showing you some snippets of video and also some Grail that I picked up here today, actually. Really, in general, didn't find a lot of new stuff in terms of new old stuff, but I did find something today that was very interesting. And you can tell live as we are, there's the police going after somebody. And so what I did yesterday was kind of go through some of the more well-known record stores in the area, and they were very, very crowded. That is one thing I definitely can say is the record stores here are very well attended, and that's a good sign. But there were a lot of people out because the weather was fairly decent. Sun was out, no rain, and it was quite the challenge just to even get around. But the bottom line was, really saw some interesting sights and some interesting vinyl. So the vinyl hunt began with a place that's actually underground called Discos La Metralleta. And it was a place that has two actual stores underground. So you go down a steep set of stairs to get there. And the first store you walk into is to the right. And they have quite a selection of CDs and vinyl there, separated by language and by genre, with the rock pop area being alphabetized by first name of artist and the group name. And the prices there were decent. My host had told me that things there used to be really inexpensive, and here in the last 6 months or so, they really have started to realize the value of some of the vinyl, and the prices have increased. And so they weren't outrageous in any way, but the selection was a lot of things that I already have, and things that were really not of great interest to me. It seemed like the more popular music, Beatles, Rolling Stones, their discs were all 30 euros and up, and a lot of the average run-of-the-mill kind of discs were 9 to 15 euros is what I had found. And there was also a secondary store that they had that when you walked out of this one and took a right, and it had a lot of let's say a little bit lower price things, maybe not quite in as great of a condition as the first store, but it did have a lot of singles, 45s. I grabbed a couple of those. I got this ELO Discovery, and the reason I got this was actually because on the back side it has a song called Jungle, which I've never heard before, and was not part of the Discovery album. So I grabbed it for €3 for that. And then I got a Christopher Cross Arthur's Theme and Ride Like the Wind, just because I really like Arthur's theme, and picked that up. I also picked up a few John Anderson albums. John Anderson, not the country artist, but John Anderson, the former lead singer of Yes. Okay, so this was called Song on 7, and this one was called Animation. And this third one I got of his was called In the City of the Angels. And I had recently got one of his, which was like a Christmas-themed album, and it was very, very good. So I thought I'd pick those up. So this store had an interesting couple I met there. They were looking through the LPs in the T letter, and they grabbed some Totos. She said, "Oh, Toto, I really like Toto." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Yeah, that's a really good band." She said, "My dog's named Toto." I said, "Oh," I said, "That's from The Wizard of Oz, Toto." And she said, "Yeah, but I named my dog actually after the band." So they took pictures with a couple of the albums. I took a picture of them with a couple of the Toto albums. Really nice couple. And it just reminded me that anywhere in the world, music brings people together. And that's really the great part of music. The next place we went into was called Discos La Gramola. So it was, on the outside, it looked fairly good. They had some very much discounted LPs and 45s out there. Had some nice posters on the outside. Then when started to traverse into the store, and you got to realize these stores are like very narrow aisles, hardly two people can pass each other. And when there's 5, 10, 20 people in the store, it gets a little bit tight. And again, things were separated by the Spanish artists versus the international artists, which of course included bands and groups from America. One thing I noticed immediately just on making some quick comparisons of Beatle albums, which I kind of use as a baseline because they're typically a little more expensive. But here they were really, a lot of the records were nearly twice what they should have been. So some of the Beatle albums were 45 to 80 euros. So, I mean, really ridiculous prices compared to the first place, and a decent selection, no doubt. But I went to the back area where they had 60s artists, and these are artists that of the kind of Bobby Vinton, Bobby Darin, Petula Clark, bands that only really people my age, my generation in their 60s or later would probably remember because they had hits in the 60s alone, or they had one-hit wonders or whatever. And these albums were $20 and up. Just really ridiculous, actually. And I thought to myself and told the friend I was with, they either don't want to sell these because otherwise they're going to end up giving these away or getting them out of the store to make room for stuff that sells. So this store was rather disappointing. Didn't buy anything there whatsoever. Didn't see anything that was rare enough to even want to consider their price range. So that's what you do. Some people don't know their prices, and I imagine they must sell some things to stay open, but that shop was really a disappointment. The next one we went to, we actually had to wait to open at 5 p.m., ironically enough. And so there were several people wanting to get in, waiting to get in, including a young boy with his family, anxious to get in. He was looking at CDs, I noticed, when he got in the store. And so looked around, and they kind of had their new albums separated from their second-hand albums. So in looking at the secondhand, one of the first problems I had, frankly, is the albums were packed in so tightly together, you couldn't really flip through them. You had to basically pull them out almost individually and look at them, and that got to be rather tiring after a while. I know our friend Stunty in the vinyl community, he has a technique and he just goes through them and he can fly through them. But frankly, I think even Stunty would have had a little problem on these because they were packed so tightly. So it really was frustrating. It seemed like they had a decent selection. They actually had what appeared to be a first pressing of the Blues Magoos albums from the 60s that had We Ain't Got Nothing Yet, their one-hit wonder on Mercury, and it was sealed. But I don't know, something that old sealed, I'm not sure if I wanted to take a chance. But it was, I think, €22, if I remember correctly on that one. But otherwise, again, their prices were reasonable. But I really, as it was getting later in the day, I just felt like I wasn't really going to fight trying to look through the vinyl to find anything. I looked through a few areas where there might have been something that I was had on my want list, but didn't find anything. So that was a little bit unfortunate because I think the selection was fairly decent, but in the shops that are pressed for space, they seem to have things packed in there pretty tightly, and that creates a bit of difficulty for people like myself to go through them. So that was kind of what we got through on Saturday. So literally I only netted 3 albums and 2 singles on Saturday. So whenever I'm in Europe, I meet all of my requirements for my workout, my steps and moving around a lot. My Apple Watch is always telling me I'm 2 and 3 times my normal goal here. So I definitely get in some good exercise. And today was no different. There were only a few record shops that were actually open today, being Sunday. Ironically, I had lunch at a hamburger institution of America, not McDonald's and not Burger King, but a place called Five Guys. Makes really good burgers, and they were fabulous. So that was a great treat to have. But the one record store that I did find that was open was called Discos Ziggy. So I was treated with a Herman Munster image on the outside, and really was interesting and cool, and walked in. And so things are separated by major bands. It has one section where you'll find your Beatles and Rolling Stones and Queen and Dire Straits and Roxy Music and Pink Floyd, the big bands, so to speak, of the rock era. And then the other sections are by decade, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and then 90s and on sections. So the 3 that I did find, a couple of them I just did to pick up for comparison's sake, to compare pressings really. And the first one was Steely Dan Gaucho, which is a favorite album of mine. So this is the Spain pressing. And another was Carpenter's Greatest Hits. Now these Greatest Hits, they always call them Grandes Éxitos. So you see they're on the back, Grandes Éxitos. So I like to compare this to many of the other pressings I have of Carpenter's records. They're always so well recorded. But the real find was this, the Horzu Beatles Magical Mystery Tour. Now, this is out of Germany, and if you know anything about it, there were some songs that were only released in true stereo on this album. And you're talking about Hello, Goodbye, Strawberry Fields Forever, and Penny Lane on the second side, and they sound fabulous. So this was €24, which is really a decent buy. These are usually pretty pricey. So, as I always do, I went and pulled out the record from the jacket and to inspect the actual quality of the record, and it was definitely a shiny, glossy album. But interestingly enough, on side A, hopefully we're going to be able to see this, you can see that it says Yellow Submarine. Huh. Wow. Turned on to the other side, and it is, in fact, Magical Mystery Tour. So I checked the dead wax, and it is, in fact, Magical Mystery Tour on side A, in spite of the labeling being Yellow Submarine. Now, I looked in Discogs. I could not find any evidence of there being one listed with a mislabeling like this. Now, I've got to do a little more research, but it may be a pig in a poke, so to speak. Not sure how it would have happened, because the label for Yellow Submarine on there is actually a UK label and not a Horzu label. And so not sure what happened in the manufacturing process, but the record, again, with the dead wax ID, appears to be side A of Magical Mystery Tour, which is what, of course, I would want it to be. But side 2, of course, is the real key on this album, to have those 3 true stereo hits on there that aren't in true stereo anywhere else. So that was a really good find for me. So what's going on next? Well, I'm actually heading in 2 days. Today is Sunday. On Tuesday morning, I'm heading to the UK. And I will be checking out some record stores in London. I will be going past Abbey Road and the famous walking across the street of Abbey Road on the zebra stripes, as they call them, and checking out record places that are hopefully going to find some grails at those. I've got a few on want lists from other people that I'm looking for as well. And so I look forward to having my next video show you some fabulous finds that I can share with you once I get back to the USA later this week. So if you liked what you saw, I'd appreciate it if you haven't subscribed to do that. A thumbs up or like is appreciated as always to help the old YouTube algorithm. Comments are always welcome as well. And if you have any thoughts on this Horzu press that I mentioned, or anything you might know about it, I'd appreciate you sharing that with me, because that one caught me off guard. So for now, thanks for watching as always, everyone, and take care from the Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion. Take care, everybody.